Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for clicking the video. It means a lot that you guys keep clicking. If you guys keep clicking, I'll keep making. And today we're talking about my Survivor 43 boot order prediction. I'm going to go through the entire cast and how I think the season's going to play out. Again, all based off very little, but it's just based off that first impression, which sometimes can be enough to take you far as predictions go. But yeah, overall, I want to go through what order I feel like that they're going to go out, why, what alliances I think will form. And I think this video is really insightful for how I feel about the cast and the tribe dynamics going into this season. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't already, because it's free, it's easy, and it really helps channel out. All right, let's start it out. So the first person I have going is Owen Knight in 18th place, the first boot. I think he is the Jacob Derwin type to melt his game in about 3 days, maybe give or take 2. And I think he would be the perfect person to just kind of ruin his game very quickly. At that point, I feel like once there's 3 girls left and the 2 guys who are Sammy and Mike Gabler, I feel like the girls will definitely band together. I think you're going to see this girl power alliance come together on this tribe between Mariah, between Ellie, like the therapist type, and then Janine, the actual like real life feminist type. I feel like we're down to get a girl power alliance going on this tribe, and so I think that leaves Sammy and Mike at the bottom. They'll probably go after Mike first, so I have Mike going out in 17th place, just because out of Sammy and Mike, Sammy's much more close to them in age, whereas Mike I feel like is kind of socially not on the same wavelength as them. So I have Mike going out next. Then after that, I see Sammy fighting hard, maybe trying to get an advantage, but I think in the end, they boot out Sammy. And at this point, I think the obvious weakest tribe in the yellow tribe has been losing all of the challenges, but I think the other 2 strong tribes, one of them will crack. And I personally think that the weaker one out of those 2 is Vesi. I feel like the men on that tribe are not nearly as strong as Jay, Gio, and Ryan from that blue tribe. So now I think Vesi is going to go twice in a row. Now the first boot I think will be just a physical liability with these players having seen 41 and 42, having seen tribes get decimated in both of those seasons, and on top of that, having seen that there's no swap and that physical tribe strength is actually very important in this new era. They are going to focus a lot on physical strength. And if that's the case, I think that Nyeka is our next boot. So in 15th place, I have Nyeka. I think that Nyeka for me is a person who I don't see connecting socially with them. And I think that there's a lot of ways that she can go wrong. Obviously, with her being a Trump supporter, or really just in general, a Republican, I feel like immediately if she says anything about that, she's done, she's gone, because these casts are always super liberal. So I think that's an issue. I think overall her being older and not being near her tribe's age is also an issue, and then her physical prowess is not at all impressive. And so I think all of those combined lead to a bad ending for Nyeka. That's my personal opinion. And that's kind of the easy boot for when Vesi goes for the first time, but I'm predicting that they'll go a second time. And the second time they go, I think they're going to go for the biggest blindside of the season with a guy who talks like Ben Shapiro, who talks like me, who's very cerebral, very in his head, very strategical, very obviously a super fan. I think Dwight is our big blindside here in the middle of that pre-merge, kind of like that episode 3 tribal where it was just a crazy tribal in the smack dab middle of that pre-merge. I feel like we're going to see something very, very similar with Dwight getting booted out here. I could totally see him just coming off way too strong early on and not playing too under the radar and playing way too hard, way too early, and people seeing that as a threat and saying, well, he's not like, Thor, so it's not like we really need him for our physical strength, and I'm willing to sacrifice him if that means getting out a gigantic threat in the game and someone who I don't trust. And for our last boot of the pre-merge before we get our earn the merge round, at 13, our last regular pre-merge boot, I have Carla. I think the bullring girl, as I like to call her, I think she's definitely bound to get booed out this pre-merge. I think the only reason she even lasts this long is because her tribe is dominating physically. But I think at a certain point, it's kind of tough to just say, oh yeah, that tribe's going to win every single immunity challenge. That's a real tough prediction to make. And so to be fair and balanced, I'm going to predict that they're going to lose at least one, probably the last one. And I think the boot here is obviously Carla, someone who just seems dreadful to be around. I could see so many different reasons. She could flame out. She could not be playing at all. She could be just seen as a threat. She could be seen as annoying. She could just be having players wanting to quit the game because she's talking so damn much. I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm sure Carla will find a way to get voted out. And so that's who I have at 13. Then once we hit that earn the merge stage, which by the way, if you don't know, this season, they're going to do the exact same thing as they did last season, except this time there's no hourglass to smash, meaning there's no chance for them to swap the results of that challenge with those two teams. But the idea of earning the merge, them splitting up those 12 people that are left and putting them on two teams, and the winners are not vulnerable and the losers are at the first merge tribal, that is still a thing for this season. And I think when looking at the past, you had Sydney and you had Lydia, two very connected female players in the game on tribes that hadn't completely fallen apart yet. And I think when you're looking at that so far, I think someone from the red tribe really stands a good chance to be in that spot. And the woman on the red tribe that I found to match that the description is Justine Brennan. I think she fits the description perfectly. She really reminds me of Sydney, a decently attractive girl, probably a pretty decent social player, but overall just has holes in her personality, maybe isn't built to really work together with others. And I think with that, you may see her get booted out at the stage where it's really important to have those number one allies fighting for you who are not vulnerable, aka think like Omar in Survivor 42 fighting for Marianne to stay, and also for Jonathan to stay. That's a great example of having that ally who's going to be there for you when things get tough, for an example, like right here. And so I think Justine gets the boot here. Then for the first real merge tribal, I think we see Geo get booted out. From the majority tribe, it's a big blindside. Think like the John Hennigan boot from David vs. Goliath, where the big, strong guy who's at the head of the majority alliance gets boom, bam, bum, done, you're gone. And I think he could totally get blindsided here. So that's where I have Geo going out. I think he'll be a big strategical threat, a big social threat, and a big physical threat. And all three of those go away with this blindside. Then after that, I kind of see a very passive boot in Cassidy, someone who I think just won't be so socially connected and kind of go out in a meh way, kind of like a Chanel type of a boot here, where I think she just doesn't have friends and she just simply can't really find her footing in the game. She may have friends, but I don't think she's going to be playing the game very strategically, and so I think she may just lack the social bonds here. Then for the number 9 boot, I have Jesse. I think Jesse may just kind of get control for a little bit very quickly, because he seems like the guy who could get those social bonds to get control, but not the type of guy to really have that killer instinct to know. And I think you really could see him kind of taking over for a second and then just losing it all. Think like Carl from Survivor David vs. Goliath, who he kind of gets control for like an episode, dominates, and then immediately just plays it completely wrong, tries to go after the wrong person, and ends up going home in the end. So I have Jesse going out here at 9. And then at 8, that usually what is the big boot in this new era, with Shan going out in this spot. And I believe we also saw the string of big blindsides start at 8 in 42 with High. So these two big threats going out in these episodes. I think at 8, we're going to see the big threat of this season socially in Mariah. Yes, the rainbow-haired lady going home in this spot. I think she plays a great social game this season, makes all the friends in the world, and gets booted out here, just like the epic big character boot. I think we could see her get one of the bigger edits of this season, if not the biggest edit. I don't know if it's going to be Shan levels, but definitely like levels of Drea and High and those type of characters. And I think she gets booted out here because everybody realizes how good of a social game she's playing to this point. At 7, I see Noelle being booted out because they realize that her story is such a big jury threat that she has to go. So I have Noelle, the paraplegic, going out here at 7. Then 6, I have Janine going out. Again, I think this is kind of just a buffer boot. She doesn't really do anything wrong here, but just simply loses maybe the trust of her main ally here. Maybe her main ally is Ellie here, and she just kind of loses that trust just for a second, and it's enough for her to get booted out here. And now this leaves that strong power trio of women from that yellow tribe that took control of their own tribe, now down to one person in Ellie. Then from here at 5, I see Ryan going home, the guy who everybody wants to get out. Big, strong, strategical, and social threat. I think he's just a full package, and I think people are going to see that, and maybe he'll slip up at in a immunity challenge here and get booted out. And I could totally see Ryan going out here. So I have Ryan going out in 5th place. And then for fire, I have Cody beating Jay in fire. Jay being like the fan favorite, like, you know, just a black nerd type of archetype that a lot of people like to root for. I could see him going out here in this spot and losing at fire, something that I'm sure Cody is better at him at. And so then from there, I see Ellie, Cody, and Lindsay in the final 3, and I think it's a pretty obvious win for Ellie, the person who probably plays the better social game, plays a little bit under the radar while also having some moves. Definitely a better winner than Marianne and Erica, but I think overall Ellie, to me, she immediately pops out as the person to win this season. She has that therapist thing going for her, which apparently therapists do amazing on Survivor, with Denise and many others who have gotten farther as well. And so I think Ellie really pops out to me. She is my official winner pick. I'm locking it in right now. And I think Cody is our fan favorite, who just gets to the end and didn't play a good enough strategy game, but I think he'll play a good social game and definitely win the hearts of the people watching at home. But what do you think? What is your boot order? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, none of this happens without you guys. Without you guys, I'm Mr. Weird Guy spinning a weird microphone. So as always, thank you. And if that's it, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.